I've been a truck driver for a few months. I've seen some weird things. When I first took this job to be an over-the-road trucker, I thought it would be really exciting. I thought I'd get to travel the country and see the sights, and come home with stories to tell my friends and family. I was right. This job is exciting, but I soon found that I'm better off not sharing these stories with anyone close to me. Not because I don't trust them, but because I'm worried they wouldn't believe me. Let me back up. My name is Brittany. I'm 22 years old, and I've been driving with a rather large company for a few months now, that I won't name, due to obvious reasons. Ever since my training ended and I got my own truck to start solo, I've seen some pretty weird shit. When you're driving the loneliest road in America, yes, that's its real name, in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, things can start to get to you. I suppose it was only a matter of time before I saw something out in the desert at nearly midnight. I still had another hour to the nearest truck stop, and blasting the freezing cold air against my face was all I could do to keep myself from dozing off at the wheel. Irresponsible, I know, but until you work this job you don't understand how much lax comes with it. I was driving this highway, in the desert, in the pitch blackness of a cold summer night, when suddenly something runs out in the road in front of me. Before I can even react, it's gone across the other side into the bushes. I barely got a good look at it, but I could have sworn it looked like a large, white dog, faster than any dog I've ever seen. I tried to just ignore it and keep driving. I see animals crossing the road at night all the time. It didn't seem like anything to get worked up about. Not even a minute later I feel my truck lurch to the left and into the other lane. I quickly try to swerve and correct it, and easily step on the brake so I don't wreck. It can be easy to jackknife an 80,000-pound metal death machine. I slow it down and regain control. I look for the nearest pover spot so I can see what the hell just hit my rig, and see if there's any damage. Once I find a spot and turn off, hit my brakes and hop out. I walk around to the other side, and see a large dent in the side of my trailer. What the fuck? I say to myself, as I walk over to inspect the side of the trailer. It's a huge dent, at least 5 feet wide and tall. No real shape to it, just a general dent. I can't imagine what could have hit me. My first thought was maybe a boulder rolled down from the side of the hill and smashed into me. But I didn't think I was driving next to any hills or mountains. As far as I knew, it was flat desert. I hear the sound of dirt crunching under footfall behind me, and I turn around. My breath catches in my throat, and my stomach drops as I see something standing not 50 feet away from me. It's large, menacing, and white. I can't even find the words to describe what this thing looked like. It looked like a very large dog, and that's a stretch. It stood onto short, stout legs, with long arms reaching down past its knees. Its shoulders were broad and heaving, as if it had just ran a marathon. Its head was mostly shaped like a wolf, with a large snout filled with razor-sharp teeth bared in a snarl, saliva dripping from its maw. Its jet-black eyes bore right through me, filled with hatred and hunger. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place. This creature stood between me and my only salvation, my truck. We stared at one another for a moment until I broke the silence. "You are one ugly motherfucker," I said. It snarled at me, then, very unexpectedly, it turned and walked away slowly using all 4 of its limbs, receding into the bushes and into the night. I stood there for what felt like several minutes, wondering if it would jump out and feed on my flesh at any moment. It never came back. I ran around the front of my truck and jumped inside, locking the door quickly and flooring it as fast as you can floor an 18-wheeler, which is not at all. Soon I was back on the highway and barreling down it, as if my life depended on it. For a while it felt like it did. Within a half hour I found myself at the truck stop and shut down for the night. Sleep was difficult that night. I was certain every noise I heard was that damn creature returning. Luckily, the night went on without another incident. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. At first it was cute and hilarious to tell her what she said. It was harmless nonsense. The sky is folding. Or, we need to raise the ground. We'd talk the next day about if she remembered her dream, but she never did. I wish I knew what she meant by, we need to raise the ground. Some context. Our nightly routine is for us to start out cuddling, and then give up once it gets too hot. Then we're usually both on our sides, back to back. She would fall asleep before I do, and so I would hear the full range of her nightly musings. Honestly, at first I was eager to hear what she said. It was always funny to tell her and our friends what she would say while deep in the throes of REM. But now I'm done. I'd prefer she not talk anymore. How am I going to sleep after what happened last night? Last night around 11 p.m. she was asleep, and I was still up reading. Back to back, I hear her mumble something under her breath. I couldn't quite make out what she said, but I lean over from my book to peek at her face, and she is sleeping soundly. I return to my book, get absorbed back into its pages. At some point I fall asleep. Next thing I know, I'm woken up by my girlfriend talking at full volume. I open my eyes, and at some point in the night both of us have turned to lay face to face. My girlfriend's eyes are wide open. She is staring right at me, mere inches from my face, but her eyes are vacuous, like she is looking through me. These eyes, man, it's like she was straining to widen them as much as possible. Those are the eyes I fell in love with, and right now they are scaring the absolute piss out of me. My heart rate skyrockets, and chock full of adrenaline I throw off the covers and jump out of bed. Looking at her, her eyes follow me like a painting, but her body stays still. For 1 second I decided that my booklight was keeping her awake, and what she had said was, "Can you please turn that off?" Now out of bed and looking at her, she's not right. Her body hasn't moved, but her eyes dart from looking at me to looking around the room. I dare to ask her, "Are you alright?" No response. Those eyes look at me when I speak, though. They are now deadlocked, looking right into my eyes. Her breathing hasn't changed. That is asleep breathing for sure. That's when, while looking right at me, she says in a too deep voice, "Come back to bed, dearie." My girlfriend has never called me dearie before. We have pet names, sure, but they range from pumpkin, baby, to cupcake. Dearie sounds like something my grandmother would call me. I decide I'll get more information before I climb back into bed with a potentially possessed girlfriend. "Are you awake, sweetie?" No response. The eyes dart from me to the wall, to the door, and then the ceiling. I'm about to nope out of the room when her wide open eyes rolled to the back of her head. The white from those eyes stands out in the dim radiance of the booklight. "No pupils in sight," she insists. Of course I'm awake. "Come back to bed," with a subtle tap of the fingers on the comforter. Looking at her fingers now, I'm starting to come around. She's never sleepwalked before. Surely she is awake now if she is moving her hands. But looking at her fingers, it as though she is pretending to have control. They are all going in different directions. One finger pointing straight down, and the others to the side. Those hands are not my girlfriend's hands. They are simulating normal movement as best they can, though. I say, "I'm going to get a drink of water, baby. Be right back. Can I get you anything?" Fully planning to run out of the house the moment I'm over the threshold. But my normally agreeable and sweet girlfriend decides I'm not allowed to leave. "As serious as cancer," she says in that to deep horror voice. "Take one step out of that door, and I will rip out your throat and sheet down your neck." Shocked but understanding the importance of not letting this beast know I am in trouble, I reply, "As interesting as a proposition as that is, I think I'm going to," and thinking quickly I grab my water bottle from the nightstand. This doesn't please my girlfriend as she decides to start screaming and fingering her way towards me. It is a supernatural scream, so high-pitched and bird-like I feel as though my neighbors 3 houses down were going to ask us if they heard that last night. As fast as I can muster, I unscrew the lid and douse her in water. Like I knew what I was doing. Her eyes close, her garbled appendages normalize, and she is back asleep. I'm going to sleep on the couch for a while, maybe forever. She'll understand when she's awake. My hands tremble over the keyboard and I may have a concussion, so please forgive any typos or brevity of my update. It is the morning after my typically amenable and kind-hearted girlfriend's body was possessed in sleep by some malicious entity. I've been distant this morning, so she knows something is amiss, but obviously still reeling from the experience. I can't tell her yet that she tried to rip out my throat and sheet down my neck. You understand? I'm tired. Obviously I didn't sleep last night, but I did stay up most of the night with all of the lights on, feverishly clutching my water bottle in the living room. The demonic beast inside my GF managed to creep its way back into control sometime soon after I exited the room, and pinned it closed with a dining room chair. Given her eye movements and the activation delay, my theory is that the beast is allowed control during REM, but what do I know? It spent most of the evening attempting to coax me back into the bedroom, this time with a pinch more emotional intelligence, calling out to me in what was as close to my GF's normal voice as it could manage. "Come to bed, sweetie. Why are you sleeping on the couch again?" I decide I'm not going to validate this demon with a response. But moments later, the too deep sinister voice is back. "If you don't open this door, I will slit the cat's throat." Fuck, I forgot about the cat. He's still in the bedroom, probably cowering in fear, hissing in the corner to no avail. My guess is that the cat is already dead. But what can I do? Let our beloved kitty be eaten alive by someone he trusts. I've seen enough horror movies to know that this is the moment I have to decide to do something dumb and heroic, or die on screen while everyone yells about how much of an idiot I am for opening the door. I may have a little more sympathy for these characters now. People thrust into impossible situations are forced to make impossible choices. Against my better judgment, I'm going to open the door, get the cat out of the room. I'm staring at the bedroom door now, and notice something damp and muscly poking and prodding its way out from under the door. I point my phone's flashlight at it, and realize it is my girlfriend's tongue. I catch myself experiencing an intrusive thought, wondering if she will want to know why her mouth is full of cat hair tomorrow. But this is perfect. I need to test out my new technique, a spray bottle full of sink water. I spray the tongue as it inchworms itself around the edge of the door, presumably looking for purchase on my human flesh. It immediately recoils, and I hear the body inside collapse. Water is still a demon possession off switch, I decide, and immediately tear the chair away from holding the door locked. I don't even have time to think about whether I have holy water on tap. I need to act fast. Attempting to open the door now, my so's unconscious body is blocking me from entering. It requires quite a bit of force to slide her ragdoll body behind the door so I can squeeze through. Trying not to look too closely at her, I realize now that she is sweating a black oily substance, and the bed and floor are totally drenched. I realize the reason it was so difficult to open the door. The demon's sweat is sticky. She may be stuck to the ground. Carefully avoiding stepping in the demon's super glue, I'm now inside the bedroom. To my dismay, I don't see the cat right away. It makes sense. Frightened as hell, it must have crawled and hid under the bed. Yikes. I've got to persuade it out from under there now, but that will mean I need to get down on my belly and reach under the bed. Realizing the absurdity of my situation, I have one hand pointing a spray bottle at my dead asleep girlfriend, and one hand reaching under the bed to grab my cat. My eyes trained on my GF, I reach blindly under the dark bed. I can feel its soft fur. I wrap my hand around it and attempt to bring it towards me. It wriggles free from my grasp with evidently zero intention of making this easy. It crawls deeper under the bed. Frustrated, I take my eyes off my girlfriend to look where it went. No sign of it. I make the call to put the spray bottle down and point my phone flashlight under the bed. It's too deep underneath for me to get it from this side. I'm going to need to go around to the other side to capture it. Pulling my head back out from underneath the bed, I realize my fatal error. My girlfriend has woken up. She is standing over me, a dark tower, as I lay vulnerable on the ground beside the bed. Her teeth look sharper from this angle in my phone's flashlight. Why didn't I turn on the bedroom light? She is drooling that black oily glue. Her hair, normally a gorgeous brown, is so glossed with black paste that it has slicked itself to her head like she just got out of the shower. Her eyes are menacing, wide open, bloodshot and yellow. She looks tired. I'm tired too, but it's time to go. The cat heroics can wait. Just as I'm about to scuttle, an adrenaline-filled crawl around her legs, and out the open door she grabs both ankles with both of her arms. I remember her typically gentle touch is nowhere to be found in this grip as her nails dig shallow wounds into my legs. With inhuman strength, she begins raising my entire body weight by my legs, plainly in an attempt to start eating me alive from the toes up. Little does she know, I've never skipped a leg day in my life. I kicked my girlfriend square in her teeth with both feet. She drops me on my head, but I can't feel it. While she is stunned, I manage to get to my feet, carefully avoid the preternatural spider web paste, and exit the room. Hands shaking, I adjust the chair to the correct angle just in time to hear agitated knocking on the other side. Baby, come back to bed. It's late. You're going to be so tired at work tomorrow. All of that, and I didn't even get the damn cat out. And my spray bottle is still in there. What the hell am I going to do now? Here's what I know. The possession ends when she wakes up. Did any of that really happen? She has no recollection of the previous night. Water disables, but only momentarily, 2-3 minutes. The black goose she drools and sweats while possessed evaporates. The bed and floor were wet this morning from the water I sprayed. The rest had all disappeared by the time I checked. The cat is fine. I need help. She's taking work calls in the other room. I'm doing my best to focus on my own work, but my mind drifts from my laptop screen. I can't focus. Agreeing to myself that I won't get anything worthwhile done today, I give up and start thinking about next steps. I need an exorcist. I'm not the kind to call an exorcist. I'm the kind of guy that scoffs at the idea. They are all scams. You can't have experience in something that doesn't exist. Clearly I am not the religious type, but I'll table my reservations for now. I'm not going to go through all of that again on my own. Feeling totally out of my element, but unwilling to call a church, I found an exorcist on Craig's list. Price is no object. Let's get this thing out of my girlfriend. He says he'll come over tonight. He messages me and says it is of utmost importance that my GF's waking body does not find out what we are going to do. If she does find out and is not be able to fall asleep, no refunds. How much more could I expect from a Craigslist exorcist? I am certainly not thrilled with the idea of a stranger knowing my address, but I'm not backing out now. As you can imagine, this is the slowest slog of a day I have ever experienced in my life. I am anxious. I feel physically sick. I jump at everything my girlfriend says. I can't look in her eyes without imagining that eerie, yellow tinge behind them. Around lunchtime I hear her humming happily in the kitchen. She really has no idea, does she? A profound sense of certain death washes over me as I watch her wield a knife to cut vegetables. Finally, the work day is over. My acting this evening was on par with any Oscar winner. Remembering what The Exorcist told me, and failing to come up with an excuse, I got into bed with her. I made sure to place the cat in a comfortable spot in the living room. We're reading side by side when she leans over, kisses me goodnight, my eyes open, and turns out her bedside table light. I'm going to keep mine on for now. Thank you. My body tense with desire to bolt. We begin to spoon. She cannot learn that something is wrong. Just a little longer. I figure I'm safe as long as I exit before she is asleep. She raises her head and asks, "Why is your heart beating so fast?" Thinking quickly, just freaked myself out by my book is all. Maybe reading horror before bed isn't the best decision. Thankfully she laughs at my obsession for the macabre, and returns her head to the pillow. I count down from 3 minutes. That's 180 Mississippis. She must have been close to asleep because she didn't protest. When I get up, I install the chair as my lock and wait. "Where are you, pumpkin? Can't you sleep?" This is so close to my girlfriend's voice. I'm certain I made the whole thing up. I'll play it safe, I decide, and not respond. Again, "It's cold without you, baby, come back to bed." I'm sure it's cold as hell, where this thing is from. I'm not opening the door. There's someone coming up the driveway. It's late. Don't let them in. I stand up to answer the front door. Outside in the dim front door light is a tall man clad in traditional priest garb. He looks like Ethan Hawke from that movie First Reformed, but clearly with a body covered in tattoos as evidenced by the inked skin poking out from beneath his cuffs. Pretty much exactly what you would expect from a Craigslist exorcist. There's not much time to introduce ourselves as we hear an alarming scrape come from the bedroom. I take this moment to read the priest's face and check if he actually has experience with this. He seems to at least be brave, his face giving no indication that he is wearing a costume for a quick buck. Outside of the bedroom door now, in hushed tones he begins to explain what he is going to do. Brandishing a Bible and a small jar of holy water, I decide not to explain that sink water works fine. We're about to open the door. Hands on the chair, I hear scraping again. This time, I realize the sound was never coming from the bedroom. It came from the living room. To my left I hear the stranger breath out softly. The cat. Cat has been watching us this whole time. Its normally green eyes now bloodshot and yellow, no pupils in sight, poking out from around the corner. Black paste drooling from its agape mouth, leaving a snail trail of fluid behind it. As it stalks out into the open, it attempts to hiss while making eye contact with the priest. But all that comes out is a bubbling gurgle, as more fluid leaks onto the hardwood. Are the cat's legs longer than usual? It looks like it has grown 5 inches in height, typically sitting around ankle level but right now could stand as high as my knees. I curse quietly to myself. How could I have been so stupid? Of course the cat managed to get itself possessed. It spent the whole night in the bedroom, presumably mopping up the viscous black oil, wet food, with its mouth. New plan. Cat first. I sheet you not. The cat fucking talks. Its mouth doesn't move from its totally agape resting position, but the voice comes out of its mouth. It's that same deep nightmare voice I'm all too familiar with. "I told you not to let him in." Just then my girlfriend decides she needs attention again. A consistent ripping of knuckles on the door. "Let me out, let me out, let me out." I'm triaging this situation in my mind when I realize the moment I took my eyes off of the cat it has rocketed itself forward, climbed the priest's tall body, wrapped its 2 long legs around his neck, and constricts him like a snake. It maintains dull eye contact with me, as I look on in horror. The priest drops his Bible and holy water on the ground, attempting to tear the cat's octopus-like legs away from his neck. He succeeds momentarily and cites what I assume is a Bible verse. The cat puts a stop to this with a quick navigation of its tail deep down into the priest's throat. Coughing and hysterical, he can't manage to escape its impossible grip, claws digging bloody fissures into his neck. My turn, as I grab the holy water from the ground and grapple with the cat's jaw, pouring the contents of the jar down its slime-obstructed throat. Immediately the cat falls to the ground like a corpse. Legs splayed in every direction, it lays on the ground, defeated for now. Once the cat is safely inside its travel carrier, the priest and I share a grim look. I ask him if he's ever dealt with this kind of thing before. Rubbing his neck, of course, 1,000 times. It takes a great deal of conviction for me to not physically roll my eyes. Glad to have you around, then. Slime tendrils seek blind escape from air holes in the side of my travel carrier as I explain to the priest not to swallow any of the black liquid. I think there may not be much hope for him now that my cat's tail has penetrated deep into his throat, but we can discuss this later. My train of thought is interrupted by the sobbing harassment of a girlfriend possessed in the bedroom. You don't love me. You never loved me. The doorknob shakes with dreadful force, tremors ringing through the hallway. Fingers emerge at the bottom of the door, viscous oil dripping from under spulched fingernails. Open this door or I kill the girl. The fingers vanish. A pause. Breaking glass from inside the room. Is it planning to jump out of the window? Surely it is bluffing. We are on the 3rd floor. Like any parasitic creature, it wouldn't gravely harm its precious host. There is a renewed sense of urgency at this threat, but I am at a loss. We poured holy water down the cat's throat, but its body has already turned into an abomination I can only describe as the alien from the thing. I wonder to myself if one of those squirming legs is going to detach, sprout a blinking eyeball, and hide in the vent. I feel helpless. I can't stay up all night misting my girlfriend like she is a damn pet chameleon for the rest of my life. Still out of breath from being choked by my cat, the priest manages to wheeze. We need to open the door. What will we do? Water stops her, but only for a minute. It's too dangerous to perform the rites while she is in this form. We'll get her in the shower and then restrain her. This is a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? Feeling a touch more brave as the priest increasingly proves himself as an asset, I begin to remove the chair. Thank you, baby. Why did you lock me in here? I have been so scared. My subconscious will forever be unwilling to separate the pleas of a demonic beast from the genuine pleas of my loving girlfriend. I hesitate, but with effort manage to shrug off this false appeal for normalcy. Chair in hand, I take a step back from the door. For a single beat, there is silence. The latch clicks. She is opening the door. Shining, black slicked hair emerges, covering her face in totality through the crack in the door. She seems to have gained several inches in height as her full form comes into view, then a single ringed yellow eye reveals itself through her long hair. I search in that eye for some sign that she is still in there, somewhere, anywhere. She is wielding a broken shard of glass and holding it to her own wrist. There is no time for protest before the priest has already sprayed her down. Her frenzied dodge is thwarted as a second jet of water dampens the pajamas my mother bought her for Christmas. I will never forget the powerlessness I felt in the next few moments. With only a few seconds left of control, the demon cuts my girlfriend's hand cruelly at the wrist with the shard of glass. That not being enough, she gnaws the rest off with her mouth. Completely dismembered, her hand splashes to the ground in a grotesque murky puddle of blood and oil. Stunned, I witness a transformation of the human body before me. Her body shakes globally and erratically on the ground as her skin regains its color. I remember a classmate from school who had seizures and that we needed to protect her head, but I am incapacitated. The priest doesn't take time to emotionally reckon the fact that my girlfriend just lost her non-dominant hand. He scoops her up, rushes her to the shower, and turns on the water. A mixture of shell shock and a concussion leave me standing idle while I stare in slow motion from the severed fist to the shower. Back to the bedroom. The beast has been proficiently turning our bedroom into some kind of nest. The walls, windows, and ceiling are painted in black as night paste with the consistency of spoiled milk dripping from the ceiling fan onto the bed. Our furniture is unrecognizable and the spider web of fluid coating the room. The priest is washing his hands in the bathroom sink. He comes and stands before me, shaking me at the shoulders, evidently having been demanding things of me for the last few seconds. Anybody home? We need to act. I need your help. Now. I come back to reality. The priest, now gritting his teeth, and manic at my seeming inability to cope with the fact that life will never go back to normal. Do you have any rope or handcuffs? Anything to restrain her with? I have some bungee cords down in my car. I'll get them. I sprint to the stairs and bellow down them 3 at a time. Grabbing the keys off the hook, I run to the car, locate the bungee cords in the trunk, and rush back upstairs. The priest has torn apart our medical cabinet, looking to apply first aid to my girlfriend's arm, and is applying pressure as I approach. I frantically tie a single bungee cord as a makeshift tourniquet to slow the bleeding. We carry her lifeless body to the bed and restrain her to the frame, both legs and one arm. Her head hangs limp. I wonder how long it will be before she turns back into that monster, but then she wakes up. She looks up at me, totally disoriented, then cries desperately as the pain sets in. "It's okay, baby, it's okay. I know this is bad, believe me, we are working on it." There is a lump in my throat as I sit down on the bed, repeatedly kissing her on the forehead and attempting to assuage the impossible. She is in so much pain. I almost want the monster to take back control, so that she cannot feel it anymore. Mercifully, she faints. Eyes still open, I point her chin up towards me, and watch as that hollowness returns, from brown to yellow. Her pupils go opaque in their descent into madness once again. Tears and blood still on her face, she smiles. "It is over. You have failed. Amen." That familiar deep voice reverberates through a sinister grin. How is this winning in the eyes of this creature? It is restrained, more so than before. It knows something we don't. Something moves in my peripheral. It is my girlfriend's severed hand, fingers padding across the floor like a spider. A trail of sludge follows it as it reaches its destination, the spray bottle. It senses that we have seen it, its form turning to look at us, with no ability to see. The hand leaps, tackling the spray bottle and tumbling awkwardly down the stairs. I am speechless. We have to go after it. We can't let it get outside of the house. Violent thrashing from the bedroom. The priest, the knots are holding. "You go after the hand. I will perform the rites." Running down the stairs I hear the distant murmurings of the ritual. "Lord above, Redeemer of the world, have mercy on us. It's just a hand. It couldn't have gone far. It could have let the cat out. It could be worse. It could be worse." I turn on the lights as I go. It's on the first floor. I tiptoe over black slime, extra cautious so as to not get any on me. I'm reminded of the time my pet snake escaped and my girlfriend, and I spent an entire afternoon looking for it. But looking for a snake isn't like looking for a cat. Cats can get underneath and above objects. Snakes can get inside of objects. A hand could be anywhere. In between the couch cushions, inside the laundry machines. It could already be outside. I have it cornered. It's behind the refrigerator. I act like I haven't noticed the trail of slime leading right there, and walk as casually as possible to the cabinet to fill a glass of water. My weapon is at the ready. I walk to the side of the refrigerator and peek behind it. Nothing. Suddenly, a pronged silhouette covers the kitchen light. Pouncing like an insect, the hand leaps from the top of the refrigerator, the perfect height to land right on my face. The hand, still wearing my girlfriend's class ring, attaches to my head, pulling my hair until it clenches a vice grip with the thumb behind my top layer of teeth, pressing pointer and ring finger into each eye socket. I drop my glass on the ground. It takes both hands to remove the hand from my face, and throw it as hard as I can against the wall. My vision blurred, I pick my girlfriend's disoriented hand up from the ground and run water over it. In the sink, I splash water in my face, and wash out my mouth as best I can. Harried, I fill a cooler with ice and water and throw the hand inside. I run back upstairs, hoping, maybe praying, that the priest did his job. It is silent except for the demonic mews of the cat in the other room. The priest is hulking over my girlfriend, muttering something under his breath as he cradles the Bible in one hand and his fingers point in all directions in the other. Noticing me, he hurriedly shuts his Bible, but seeing one of the pages I note that it is in fact not a Bible at all. Inside are what I can only imagine demonic scrawls and symbols would look like. But the priest has done his job, he says. The demon has left her. Carefully placing my girlfriend in the back seat, I yell back to the priest, "I'll pay him when we get back." Putting on my seatbelt, I look out the window and note a tattoo on his arm similar to a symbol I saw in the false Bible. Driving to the hospital like a husband would if his wife had gone into labor. I wonder if you can surgically reattach a hand like you can a finger. Then I wonder if the hand even should be reattached. Do I need to ask the priest to perform pious rituals to just a hand? As I got on the elevator, the man getting off whispered something strange to me. "Don't get off until you hit the 9th floor. No exceptions." "But my interview is on 5, I replied. "I'll only say this only one more time. Don't get off until you hit 9th. No other floor is safe." It's crazy, but something about the way he said it penetrated my skull. He was serious, and he looked nervous, like he had to fight every instinct in his body to say that to me. The doors closed, while I thought to myself, who the fuck says anything like that? As I went to hit the button for the 5th floor, some anxiety came over me. I shook it off, and pressed it. The guy was probably just off his rockers. The elevator went up. I scanned my surroundings. A TV bolted to the top corner of the elevator, playing the Weather Channel. A mirror for the back wall of the elevator, and some cozy lounge-style music playing. Pretty standard stuff. Now arriving at the 5th floor. Weird. not sure if I'd ever been in an elevator that announced each floor it was arriving at. I was sure that if I worked in this building, this would get pretty old quickly. Ding. The doors opened on 5. In front of me was a reception area with a woman seated at the front desk. She stood up from her seat. "Mr. Davis, you're early." The gentleman's warning from earlier played in my head. "We'll be ready for your interview in a few moments. In the meantime, please feel free to take a seat." Thank you," I responded. "If I'm, early, maybe I can come back in a few minutes." "Nonsense. We'll see if we can speed things up. He's been very excited to meet you." The elevator doors started closing. I held them open. I wasn't sure what to do here, but everything seemed fine enough. Granted, the receptionist did seem a bit eager, but beyond that. From my vantage point, I scanned the office space behind the front desk area. All looked normal: cubicles, folks clicking away at their computer, a kitchen area, pretty unremarkable. That is, except for the portrait off at the far end of the office floor. It was very large. I couldn't tell what the picture was of, but I did see a group of employees, staring at it almost, admiring it. "Your wife's name is Meredith, right?" I froze as the receptionist's question shot a dart right through me. I didn't remember the job application form ever asking for my wife's name. "You two are thinking of having children, right? If it's a boy, you want to name him Sam?" What the fuck? Forget that she was right on the money. This was something I'd never spoken about before to anyone, including my wife. Before I could answer, the office workers surrounding the large portrait started singing the happy birthday song loudly. In complete and perfect unison, someone brought out a birthday cake and presented it to the portrait. A portrait that, after a bit of squinting, I realized was a very large version of my high school yearbook photo. I backed into the elevator and pressed the close door button. I panicked as it took its sweet time to register. Press, 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 come the fuck on. After what felt like an eternity, the doors started closing. As they closed, I heard the receptionist. "I'm so curious to know what your insides taste like, Michael." Fuck me. 9th floor. I needed to go to the 9th floor. I found the 9th floor button and pressed it. It felt like it didn't register my push, so I pressed the button again and again. Come on, come on, come on. 9th fucking floor. I tried again and again, but nothing was happening. Fuck it. I'll go back to the ground floor, I thought to myself. Back to the start. As I went to press the G button, I realized it was missing. Just that one singular button gone. Fuck. I was getting claustrophobic. I took in deep breaths to prevent myself from having a full-blown episode. The elevator started moving up again. A panel above the elevator doors lit up with the following number: 11. Someone was calling the elevator. I started talking to myself to self-soothe. It's okay. Someone will call the 9th floor soon. That's where I'll get off. As the elevator approached its new destination, I noticed that the background lounge music in the elevator had changed. It was now an instrumental arrangement of "Happy Birthday, Hey." Not sure why this thing thought it was my birthday. I glanced at the weather report on the TV. At least it was going to be sunny all week. Silver linings. Now arriving at the 11th floor. Ding. The doors opened. I hung around the inside corner of the elevator beside the buttons. No need to have another nightmarish experience, right? An old woman stepped onto the elevator. Great. I'm sure this will be easy to explain to her. She smiled at me as the doors closed. With a lump in my throat, I asked, "What floor?" "Ground floor, please." I'm sorry, Mom, but that button is missing. Maybe we could wait until someone calls us to the 9th floor. 9th. No, I think I'll just go to the 2nd floor instead, then. She went to press the button. "Mom, I don't think it'd be safe to. I have plenty of friends on the 2nd floor. It'll be okay?" And she pressed it. I didn't feel comfortable cornering an elderly stranger in a seemingly haunted elevator, but I tried again to convince her. I know this sounds weird, but I have it under good authority that the 2nd floor probably isn't safe. I'd strongly recommend not getting off until we reach 9. She smiled. "Dear, it'll be all right. You know, I like to take all opportunities that are given to me. It's a shame that you turned your opportunity down. I know the folks on 5 are very disappointed." I backed up into the corner of the elevator. I saw the reflection of the old lady in the elevator's back mirror. She looked ghastly, otherworldly. Now arriving at the 2nd floor. The doors opened. She smiled at me again, and then exited. I poked my head around the corner to look at the 2nd floor. It was damp. It looked old, more like a cave than an office. I heard a low rumble. A man dressed in a fancy suit approached the elevator doors and held them open before they could close. "You getting off here too, champ? I heard that 5 wanted you. I think we can give you a better offer." "I'm good." "You sure, bud? The salary is $800,000 every hour." "I'm good." "I'm kidding, bud. The salary is we remove your eyes so you don't have to see him." The floor went pitch black. The low rumble got much louder and started reverberating in my ears. Suddenly, the businessman grabbed me by the collar and tried to pull me out of the elevator. I clung onto the ends of it. Fuck. I started kicking and headbutting him. I was able to make him let go of me momentarily as I desperately pressed on the "close doors" button. Miraculously, the elevator responded much quicker this time and they closed immediately. I tried the 9th floor button again. Didn't work. I pressed 8 instead. Anything to get away from this hellhole of a floor. I heard a loud banging on the door as the elevator started taking off, like an aggressive knock. Bang, bang, bang. As I saw the floor numbers rising. 3, 4, 5. The banging continued, just as loud. What the fuck? 6th floor, 7th floor. The banging on the door didn't subside. Now arriving at the 8th floor. I pressed the button for the 23rd floor. Just as we arrived on 8, I mashed the "close doors" button just as the elevator doors were about to open. The banging continued as the elevator doors started denting. The elevator continued going up. 9, 10, 11. The banging softened. 14, 15, and softened. 19, 20, 21, and disappeared. Now arriving at the 23rd floor. It was gone. Thank fucking God. I exhaled. It felt like I'd narrowly avoided disaster. The doors opened. I scanned the new floor, and I realized I was back on the ground floor. That's what it looked like. Anyways, did I escape? Was I finally free? A man stood not too far from the door. He looked familiar, but I couldn't exactly place him. "Hey man," he spoke. Was this the guy who got off the elevator just as I got on? "Hey. It's over, man. You got out," he told me. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but I had to fight it. "But you said the 9th floor was the only safe one, right?" "That was a trick. You followed your gut and you were right. 23rd floor, the real safe floor. You can step out now, man." I didn't leave. "There's someone here who really wants to see you." I couldn't move. "He wants to give you a job. He thinks you're gonna be great." Why the fuck couldn't I move? "He's in the other room. I'm gonna fetch him, okay? All you have to do is look at him. It'll feel a bit weird at first, but then it'll all be okay. It's a permanent position. Great benefits. It is fully on-site, but no better birthday present than a new job, right?" I lowered my gaze to the floor. I forced myself to mutter the following words: "It's not my fucking birthday." As he left to fetch whoever he was meaning to fetch, he gave me the following response: "Relax, man. No cursing on the job. We're a family here." It felt like I could only move a centimeter at a time, a true snail's pace. I inched my finger closer and closer to the "close door" button. I heard footsteps. He was coming back. With every fiber of my being, I pushed through. I hit the button. The doors closed, and I collapsed to the floor, free from whatever weird force was stopping me from moving. "I'll let you to talk more on the elevator," I heard him say from outside the doors. What? Instinctively, I looked around. To my surprise, there was nothing. The elevator was the same as it had always been. A lengthy exhale. I was done with all of this. At this point, I would have taken death over continuing this bullshit any longer. As I pondered my next move in this hopeless situation, I noticed something strange. The button to the 9th floor was lit up, an ominous, crimson-red color. Before I could do anything else, my phone started ringing. I checked the call. It was my wife. I answered. "Babe, fuck. I don't know why I didn't even think to call you. I'm trapped in an elevator and fucked up shit is happening, and maybe I should call the cops. Fuck I. Hun, don't go to the 9th floor." "What? Wait, how do you even?" "It's a trick, honey. You have to trust me. The man from before was lying to you. It's not safe. None of this has been safe. How do you even know everything that's happening? You just need to trust me, hun." I paused. "So what do you want me to do then?" A demon on the other side of the phone answered this time. "Go to your interview." I hung up the call and in a panic, I mashed on the 9th floor button. The elevator started rising again. Even with me hanging up the call, the muffled sound of the demonic voice coming from my phone continued. "Go to your interview. Go to your interview. Go to your interview. I pulled out my phone and flung it to the ground as hard as I could. I stomped on it angrily. The warped sound of, "Go to your interview," slowly started dying out. But suddenly, the elevator started shaking. It was continuing to go up, but it was faster than usual. Really fucking fast all of a sudden, almost like the 9th floor was now way below me. It felt like an amusement park ride with no brakes on it. Loose, dangerous, flinging up at an insane speed, almost as if it was falling upwards. But I pressed 9. I screamed to myself, exasperated. It didn't matter. Now arriving at the 41st floor. God, what the fuck? I was brought to my knees by the speed of the elevator traveling faster and faster. Now arriving at the 90th floor. The buttons didn't even go past 52. Now arriving at the 141st floor. Fuck. Now arriving at the 230th floor. Now arriving at the 401st floor. I felt like I was inside a bullet. The pleasant voice of the elevator lady was getting deeper and deeper as we rose. Now arriving at the 840th floor. The voice started croaking, a demonic sound this time. Now arriving at somewhere nice. A sudden halt. The elevator stopped. The doors didn't open though. The panel above the elevator doors had no indication on what floor we were on. As I sat, I heard what could be best described as the sounds of hell. Coming from outside the elevator, low grunts of pain, crackling, a dark hymn. Was this where I was supposed to get off? Before I could ponder the question further, I heard a soft tapping on the elevator, a voice from outside. "Do you want to trade?" said the voice. I decided to bite, for reasons I still don't fully understand. "What do you mean? What if you stay on this floor forever, and I get to go home?" "Whoa, I think I'm good. But I really want to go home." It almost sounded like the voice of a kid. "Fucking hell. I am sorry, kid," I mustered back. "It's okay." An awkward silence between us. "He told me that he wants to wish you a happy birthday," said the kid. I think he's got it wrong. "Today isn't my birthday." "It is," he responded. "It's the first day of your new life, your birthday. He wants you to look at the TV." "What?" I looked at the TV in the top corner of the elevator, hoping to see the one constant I'd had during this whole cursed trip, the weather. Instead, the TV was now showcasing what looked to be CCTV footage, grainy footage from a camera of the exact elevator I was in, a live feed of this exact moment. Except, the TV showed me lying down, looking up with a wide smile on my face. And something above me on the ceiling, looking straight down at me. Him. The lights in the elevator went off. The elevator plummeted downwards, as I closed my eyes, and screamed for dear fucking life. I waited for the impact, for what I knew was my demise. Here it comes. Here it fucking comes. I'm not ready. I'm not ready at all. Now arriving at the 9th floor. Ding. The doors opened. Wait, what? 9th floor. I peeked out from the elevator. Another reception desk. Wait, is this really the? I was interrupted by a voice from the outside. You coming out or what, you fucking moron? I got to my feet. The feeling of distrust, anxiety, whatever you'd call it, my fear, intuition, it was gone. I felt light. Fuck it. I stepped onto the floor and approached the counter. The receptionist handed me what looked like a button for the elevator. "For the ground floor," she said, "single use only." I took it and headed towards the elevator. Then, I turned back to face her. "Can I maybe take the stairs?" She shook her head. "If you didn't like the elevator, then you're really not gonna like the stairs." Fair enough. I got into the elevator. I said a silent prayer to myself as I put the button where it belonged. It fit without any issue. I pressed it, and the elevator went down. It was a smooth ride. Now arriving at the ground floor. Ding. As I got ready to exit, I realized that the ground floor button was missing once again. Strange. I didn't linger on it. I marched out, ready to get the fuck out of this building. I noticed a woman running onto the elevator. I tried to stop her, but something in my body wouldn't let me. The most I could muster was putting my hand on the door to relay a message to her before the doors closed. "Don't get off until you reach the 9th floor, no matter what." The woman just smiled at me. "Happy birthday, Michael." My friend was raised to know the exact date and time of her death. I only knew Michelle for a month, but it was truly a month to remember. I first met her when she was carving out my high school bull's eye with a butter knife, and we were more or less inseparable after that. She was a few years older than me, so of course I fell instantly in love, but I knew deep down we were destined for friendship and little else. I knew this deep down because she made it clear that she was gonna die in roughly a month. Can't love a dead chick, she'd say. At first I thought it was just a clever way to avoid the awkwardness of turning me down, but at some point I came close to believing her. It was just something about her, something extremely free, careless and unconfined, refreshingly brave and outspoken and honest. When I met her I was going through the most depressing period of my life. I was constantly bullied and belittled at school. My younger twin sisters were both hospitalized, each needing a transplant to survive. Jenna needed a heart, Chloe needed kidneys, and my parents had their hands full covering the medical expenses. I think we all in our own ways were on the verge of just giving up, of just letting go. I was saved by Michelle, I have no doubt about it. If she hadn't shown up when Brett was beating the shit out of me, I would have killed myself that day. I was just so sick of it. Sick of the beating, sick of the abuse, sick of being alone. But Michelle came out of nowhere, threw him into the wall, knocked his nose halfway up his brain, and proceeded to dig out his left eye with the aforementioned cutlery. He never touched me again. You'd think she'd get into trouble after doing something like that, but it was never reported. Brett claimed it had been an accident, that he'd crashed with his moped. I think he feared that Michelle would kill him if he said otherwise. I for one have no doubt she would have. That was just who she was. Michelle never went to school. She said it was because she knew she was gonna die. Why bother with bullshit like school then? No. She was all about enjoying life to the fullest, kicking us holes in the face, fucking over people, who fucked over others. She wanted to leave this world a better place than she found it, and by her logic this was done exclusively by ridding it of shitbags, one way or another. How do you know you're gonna die? I asked her once. My parents tell me, she said, every day, and they're good for their word. She wouldn't explain it in detail, just that she was raised knowing the exact date and time of her death, down to the very second, and that it was meant to be. That's what they told her. In death, her life would have meaning. At first I didn't think much of it. You know, she was a crazy girl, and she always said weird stuff like that. I was kinda banking on it all being some bizarre joke or something, but when the month drew to a close, I was getting really worried it might all be true. I'd grown too attached to her. Every minute I wasn't at school or the hospital was spent with her, and the thought of losing her, my only friend, made me horribly depressed. That last week I was really on edge. The twins were in bad shape, and my parents were spending every waking minute at the hospital. They had yet to find any donor matches, and time was running out. It felt like my time was running out too. The dark thoughts were returning, and I started imagining how I would kill myself should Michelle ever leave me. I found it strange that she'd never invited me home. I mean, friends do that, right? Invite each other over. She'd been to our house several times. She even crashed on the couch a few times, and we would often watch movies there, raid my parents' liquor cabinet, get wasted and generally just have fun. But I'd never been to her house. Not once. I didn't even know where she lived. So one night I just decided to follow her. What was there to lose, really? Maybe I could get some answers from her parents or something. Some way to explain why she was so convinced she was dying. Maybe they lied to her. Some sort of cult. A way to form her beliefs into accepting the unacceptable. A way to control her. I stalked her for 30 minutes, lurking in the shadows as she paced down the streets. When she headed to the outskirts I started getting worried, and when she took the narrow trail through the forest I was almost having a full-on panic attack. Where the hell was she heading? As far as I knew, there weren't any houses for miles. About halfway into the forest, I suddenly lost her. It was like she vanished without a trace. I walked back and forth, up and down, but there was just no sign of her at all. Eventually I had to give up and return home, my mind growing ever darker. I remember the last day like it was yesterday. Every minute of it, crisp and clear and vivid in my mind. Every scent, every sound, every muscle moving on her perfect face, all those smiles and kind words. Everything. The last day came and went, but I didn't know it was the last day. If I'd known, I would have told her how much I cared for her, how much she meant to me, how much I owed her my life and sanity. Without her I wouldn't be alive. But I didn't know, and I never told her. I hope she somehow realized it, that she could see it in my eyes and actions every day, but I can never be sure. She just acted so normal, you know. She was Michelle that day too. Same carefree spirit, the same wild, devil-may-care attitude. We spent the afternoon smoking weed, watching silly cartoons, laughing and just enjoying each other's company. But when she left, I knew something was up. I don't know how. I guess there was some detail, some little thing that alarmed me. But having replayed and analyzed that day over and over in my mind, I can't think of anything. Nothing. But I knew. So I followed her again. This time I stayed closer, always having her in my sights, always knowing exactly where she was. She was walking considerably slower that night, almost like she knew I was behind her, almost like she wanted me to follow her. The air was cold and crisp, and whenever autumn draws close, I can step outside, take a deep breath, and relive the exact moment when she suddenly turned on her heels to face me. "This is it," she said. "This is the day I die." She walked over to me and handed me an envelope. It was light, but there was definitely something in it. A letter, perhaps. "You will need this." She stroked my hair gently. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do with it." "I don't understand," I said. "Please, let's just leave. Let's just get out of here." She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. If I concentrate real hard, I can still conjure up the smell of her perfume. "This is goodbye," she murmured softly, "but you will come to understand that it was always meant to be." I reached out to hug her when they emerged from the darkness. Two tall figures clad in dark robes, an old man and an elderly woman, their milky white hair flowing gently in the breeze. They had this solemn expression on their faces, the kind you'd see in funerals, an expression of acceptance to sorrow and despair because it is just a part of life. Michelle pushed me away forcefully, and by the time I'd regained my balance it was already too late. Her throat had been slit from either side of her neck, a perfect cross, left to right, right to left. Blood was squirting out, coloring the dull brown of the roadside a deep shade of crimson. The robed couple swiftly stepped back into the shadows, leaving me desperately clutching the lifeless body of Michelle, screaming my lungs out, wailing like an animal into the cold night. The paramedics came 10 minutes later. I have no idea who called them. Anonymous, they later told me. She had no id on her. So they asked me a bunch of questions. I didn't know the answer to any of them. She was Michelle. That was all I knew. Her name was Michelle. She was my friend, and she was the best person I'd ever met. They let me ride the ambulance to the hospital, but they quickly pronounced her dead. She'd lost too much blood, they told me. It wasn't my fault. There wasn't anything I could have done. This didn't offer me much comfort. I was devastated, totally broken. The dark thoughts resurfacing once again, this time with more power than ever before. "What's that in your hand?" one of the paramedics asked. "Does that belong to Michelle?" I glanced at the envelope. It was completely drenched in blood, much like me. And then it suddenly hit me. I don't know what it was, but it was like she told me, "When the time comes, you'll know what to do with it." So without thinking, I just handed it over to him. He sort of held it up, like he'd somehow see through it, if he got a better angle of it, before he gently opened it. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "I am better now. I still have problems understanding what happened, but I am better. I have come to terms with it, with the fact that everything happened just the way it was supposed to happen, and it has shaped me, shaped my life into what I am today. Michelle didn't just save me, she saved my entire family, every aspect of my life." And I guess you're wondering, what was in that envelope? Maybe you'd figured it out, maybe not. It was a donor card, and as it turned out, she was a perfect match for my twin sisters. "Can't love a dead chick," she said. That's the only thing she was ever wrong about. I think my son has lived my life before. He told me my future and I'm terrified. Let me just start by saying my 6-year-old son and I are very close. From an extremely young age, he has been able to sympathize with me and has been extremely emotionally intelligent. The thing is, it's not with everyone. It's just me. He feels like just a regular boy with everyone else, but he always knows what to say when I'm having a hard day. I try not to show it, but he somehow knows. Emotional intelligence is how I've always played it off, but now, I'm not so sure anymore. Since my son could talk and form sentences, he has said things to me that he should have no way of knowing. It started out with him saying things like, "Mommy, don't worry, I still think you're pretty." That day, I was really struggling with my body image. I put on a few pounds and hated myself. Of course, I didn't let my son see me crying in the mirror or grabbing the rolls on my stomach. I mean, little boys always think their mother is beautiful, right? It's not like he knew. Soon after that, he mentioned to me that he missed Bethany. I asked him who Bethany was, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He told me it was his sister, who died. My son never had a sister. However, I had a sister who died at 16, whose name was Bethany. I never mentioned it to him. I thought maybe it was a fluke. Next, I lost my job. Once again, He had no clue it happened. I was reading him a bedtime story, and he put his hand over the book and looked up at me. He got a serious look on his face and said, "It'll be okay, you'll find a job next week, and it'll pay better too." It felt weird that he found out about the job loss, but I didn't think much about it. Once I did, in fact, get a job next week that also paid better. I was weirded out. I asked my mother about it, and she said it's probably just the close bond that a mom and son always have. Kids are weird. Every parent has their own story of a time when their kid said something terrifying to them. She tried to explain to me. A few months ago, it started to become an everyday thing, where he would say something about a subject he shouldn't know. Then about a month ago, it went from him knowing things he shouldn't to him saying things like, "I remember when I was a girl, and I loved the color purple. I remember when I was a mommy, and I cried a lot. I remember when I was a mommy, and I wanted to run away." This felt weird to me. It wasn't like he thought he was a girl. I asked him once why he thought he was a girl. He looked at me frustrated and said, "I'm not a girl now. I was a girl before I was a boy." He kept telling me stories of all the things he did when he was a girl. He would tell me things about myself that I've never told anybody, even my husband. When I told my husband I was starting to get scared of my son, he said I was being dramatic. I guess it doesn't help my case that I didn't tell my husband everything my son said to me. When he said things like missing his dead sister, that was one thing, but, well, let's just say I've not always been a saintly woman. I have a past. I mean, we have all done things we aren't proud of, but my husband doesn't know about these things. First of all, I stole a lot as a teenager. Nothing too crazy. I think a lot of teenagers do that, honestly. The more serious things I kept from him are, I got a DUI in college. My ex has a restraining order over me. I was a stripper for several years. And worst of all, I cheated on my husband a few years ago. It was dumb, and I regret it. But I will never tell him. My son had mentioned doing all these things when he was a girl, or when he was a mommy. Of course, in child terms, but nonetheless, he described all those things. He hasn't mentioned much to anyone else, mostly just me. He hasn't come right out and said that he was me or anything. If he were me, maybe he doesn't realize it. Maybe he just has random, fuzzy memories of another life. Last week, I noticed he seemed down. He wasn't really talking like he normally does. I felt like a terrible mother. I was thankful he wasn't talking. It felt like every time I talked to him, I got more and more scared of him. One day, he crawled into my bed with me in the morning. He took a deep sigh and looked at me. "I remember when I was a mommy, and that car hurt me tomorrow." My heart sank, and I didn't even know what to say, but I mustered up the courage. "Honey, what is going to happen to me tomorrow?" I said while pushing away the hair falling in his face as a nervous tick. "I remember it hurting so bad. I don't want you to feel the pain too. Don't go. Don't do it." I sat, looking him deep in his eyes. My bed, which felt so warm and comforting a few minutes ago, now felt cold and hard. What was going to happen to me? I kept asking him what was going to happen to me. Every time I asked, he got more and more upset. My husband woke up after I asked him for the 5th time. He got so mad at me. I can't blame him. I was clutching our son's shoulders and screaming, tell me," I said, over and over and over again. My son didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. The next day, I tried to explain to my husband what our son said and how I was scared, because this was the first time my husband heard of my son saying such crazy things. He didn't believe I was in danger. We had dinner plans with some friends that night. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I figured since my son mentioned a car, I needed to just stay away from them at all costs. I tried to convince my husband I was sick, but he, of course, didn't believe me. I Sholby said I was sick from the very beginning, and not told him the real reason for wanting to stay home. My son's babysitter made it to the house. As we said our goodnights to our boy, he gave me a sad hug. Not only that, but he couldn't take his eyes off my left hand. After our hug, he grabbed my fingers and squeezed them tightly. I knew something was about to happen to my hand. I felt like I could anticipate the pain. We walked out the door, and my husband guided me to the car door. He opened it up and helped me in. Although it didn't feel like he was trying to be a gentleman, it felt like he was scared that I was going to run. He wasn't wrong. After a few minutes of driving, I felt the anxiety building. I felt sick. At a stoplight, I noticed the car door was unlocked. I slipped off my heels and opened the car door. I was trying to move way faster than my feet could take me. I didn't see the curb and tripped over, face planting in the process. My husband came running over to help me up. I thought he would be mad that I tried to run away. I thought he would call me a brat or worse, but he didn't. He could see How scared I was. He realized it didn't matter if what I was feeling was real or not, but he needed to respect my fear and worry. He tried to help me back into the car. He said we would go back home, but I refused to go in the car. I told him we had to walk. This is when he started to get frustrated. He felt like he did his best to compromise and emphasize with my anxieties, but he wasn't willing to walk to Miles' home in 40-degree weather at 7 p.m. Looking back, I understand why he was so annoyed. He grabbed my shoulders and took a deep breath. He started nudging me back to the car. The nudging turned into pushing, and the pushing turned into forcing. I was pushing back and doing everything in my power to not go into the car. I was kicking and screaming. A few other cars pulled over to help. I'm sure they were thinking something much worse was actually happening. Before anyone could get to me, he got me into the car. As he was slamming the door, I reached out my hand to try and stop it. The next few minutes were so fuzzy. I could feel my hand pulsing. I could vaguely hear my husband screaming and apologizing profusely, followed by strangers separating us and trying to help. An ambulance showed up a few minutes later, and that's when I noticed my hand. My index, middle, and ring fingers had been smashed in the car door. Half of my middle finger was completely gone. We went to the ER, and about 80% of my fingers were saved, luckily. If it wasn't obvious, my husband felt terrible, not only for what happened to my fingers, but for being so aggressive with me and not listening to me. I know I should have been more bothered, but I have other family members I'm more worried about. After that, I accepted that I needed to take what my son said about my future seriously. That week, he said more disturbing things. I remember when I was a mommy, and I set the house on fire. I remember when I was a mommy, and I stabbed my husband. I remember when I was a mommy, and the scary man took me into the forest. I remember when I was a mommy, and the monster from the closet hurt me. I was terrified of the things that would happen to me. I know children can't always describe or articulate words that well at a young age, but that didn't help me feel any better. I tried to ask him for details of what he meant, but once he said something, he usually didn't want to talk about it anymore, especially if it seemed to be traumatizing. It's like the memory would flash in his head, and it had to blurt it out. The reason I am writing all this out in the first place is because of what he told me today. The two of us were coloring at the kitchen table, and without even looking up at me, he said, "I remember when I was a mommy, and my son killed me." I froze in fear. I couldn't believe the chill that ran down my spine, and the fact that he didn't seem fazed by it at all. He just kept coloring his pirate ship. I need help. What the heck am I supposed to do? I don't even know how to process any of this. I don't believe in reincarnation or anything like that. Even if I did, is that even how it works? There shouldn't be an overlap in lives like this, right? But how else is something like this explained? It's not like my kid can just see the past and future. He has seen my whole life before, and from his perspective, he doesn't find it strange that my life used to be his. He is also aware enough to recognize a memory, like when I lost my job, and he comforted me knowing that I'll get a new job soon. This whole thing is hurting my brain. I love my son, but I'm so terrified, and feel crazy. Someone, please help me. I don't know what to do.